Now that we have taken a fun but exhaustive look at colonial North America, it's time to look at the seeds of the American Revolution. And there's no easy way to say it other than the British start making people mad. Now, is there a more nuanced and involved way to put this? Of course, and those are for the more academically rigorous books that you can dive into after this. But remember, this is just a introduction, getting your toes wet into the pool of the Revolutionary War. So while there are many ways to dive into this, we're going to start off by showing just how the British start making the colonists mad. And the British would start acting like real punks right after what was known as the French and Indian War. This war was actually part of a larger war known as the 7 Years' War, and Britain and France were just having at each other with the help of local Native American tribes. Why were they fighting exactly? Well, they're fighting over land claims in North America. As you can see by all these colors, a lot of different people, the French, the British, the Spanish, were all claiming different parts of North America. And those British colonists in the backcountry, the fur traders, started moving into the Ohio River Valley, which kind of alarmed the French because that was technically what they thought was their territory. Here's a map of the Ohio River Valley, so you can see exactly where these skirmishes started breaking out. Both parties were claiming that the land was theirs, and the French kicked the fur traders out. However, the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia sent a small group of soldiers to go kick the French out. That group was headed by none other than future superstar George Washington. Now, there have been a lot of things said about our future first president, but this guy was incredible through and through. First of all, he might have been semi-crazy. Why, do you ask? Well, it has been reported that he loved the sound of musket fire shooting past his head. In fact, in a letter to his brother, he stated, "I heard the bullets whistle, and believe me, there is something charming to the sound of bullets." I'm not saying he should have been in a colonial insane asylum, but you know, that's kind of odd behavior. And this odd behavior would not fade. In fact, as he died, he was taking his own pulse, and he just turned to his aide and said, "I am just going." So, I'll let you be the judge. Anyway, back to the war. Washington and his troops would fight the French from a small fort that they built called Fort Necessity. However, the French fought back with much force, and Washington and his troops lost. They sent Washington back to Virginia, and thus started the French and Indian War. The French and Indian War would go on for a while, and in fact, the British and the colonists banded together to defeat the French, and the colonists were proud of working side by side with the British. However, this would cause problems to arise, because before, the colonies were allowed to largely develop on their own. But after this 7 Years' War, the British government would really want to step in and make sure that they were governing the 13 colonies and all the new territories gained by this 7 Years' War. They wanted the control, and they started to take it out of the hands of the colonists, making them, as stated before, pretty mad. The first thing that the British did that really angered the colonists was the Proclamation of 1763, which stated that colonists could not move west of the Appalachian Mountains. Now on this map here you can see the Appalachian Mountains in red, and the British Crown is essentially saying, colonists, you can't keep moving into the backcountry. And people were moving into the backcountry because they wanted more land, they wanted more freedom. So the British Crown is essentially constricting their freedom and their chance to get new land and find new opportunities. Well, the colonists did not take too kindly to this, and so they just completely ignored it. Well, the British monarch, King George III, did not take too kindly to this. He's pictured here in a rather intense outfit, so he brings in 10,000 British troops to enforce the proclamation, and he also put into effect the Quartering Act, which said that the colonists had to house and feed and supply these new troops. We've all had that friend that kind of comes over and just kicks their feet up on the couch and eats all our food and just makes us upset. Now imagine someone enforced it so we had to have that guy over, had to let him disgrace our house. As you can imagine, the colonists didn't take to it too well. And the colonists would be further angered when the Crown decided that they needed more money, because remember, after the 7 Years' War that the British won, they were in debt. They spent a lot of money on that war, so they started doing things to make up that lost money, and they took it out on the colonists. One way was through the Sugar Act, in which the British Crown put a tax on imported sugar, molasses, and a variety of other goods, and this just upset the colonists, who really enjoyed sugar. And they used the molasses for the production of rum, so it was cutting into their revenues. Things would get downright nasty with the passage of the Stamp Act in 1765. This made it so all legal and commercial documents had to carry an official stamp showing that the tax had been paid, and even newspapers had to be printed on a special paper that showed that a tax had been paid. And to make things even worse, the stamps had to be paid for in silver coins, which silver was a scarce commodity in the colonies. Colonial leaders such as James Otis and Samuel Adams started screaming out, "You cannot tax us, we aren't even represented in the British Parliament. No taxation without representation." Some of these colonists even used more than words to fight back against the crown. They attacked customs officials, tarred and feathered them. They even burned the stamp paper. They did everything that they could to protest these certain measures that the crown was imposing on the colonists. The most famous group was known as the Sons of Liberty. So as you can see, a great tug of war was breaking out about who would rightfully govern the colonies, and soon it would explode into what is known as the Revolutionary War.